I don't even see it as like female, a bunch of stuff in between, male. To me, it's like there are so many types of woman. There are so many types of non-binary person or agender person or gender fluid person. It is an infinite spectrum. There's so many types of ways to be a man. There's so many ways to be a masculine woman or a femme non-binary person.
Hello and welcome to the 50 Shades of Gender podcast. We get curious about all things gender, sex and sexuality, as well as relationships, feminism, the inclusive kind, mental health and kink, and all that makes us humans unique and diverse. From body positivity to body dysmorphia, it's all welcome here. If you like what we do and want to make a contribution, you can become a patron on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/50 Shades of Gender or buy us a coffee. Links are on the website. Now, join us on a journey of inclusion, acceptance, and respect. I'm your host, Esther Lemons. I am a queer woman, and my pronouns are she and they. In this episode, I have a conversation with Brianne Leeson, a writer, artist, and voice actor, and the creator of the supernatural comedy audio drama Today's Lucky Winner. Brianne's pronouns are she and her, and she is autigender as well as bisexual, polyamorous, and demi-romantic. Find out what that means to Brianne in this episode. We also talk about doing womanhood differently and the infinite flavours of gender and gender expression, accidental polyamory and unpacking social and religious conditioning, what we can learn about communication from autistic people, sensory issues and how they shape expression, finding freedom in embracing your neurodivergence, and questioning everything. To clarify some terminology that is used in the episode, cishet means cisgender and heterosexual, and allistic means not autistic. It was recorded on the 14th of July 2022. Now let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome. What's your name?
My name is Brianne Leeson.
Hello, Brianne. So let's talk about gender. One of the labels you gave me was autigender, which I'm really interested in. So what does it mean to you to be autigender?
Yeah, autigender was something I discovered as a label shortly after my autism diagnosis. And basically, autigender means your experience and your expression and your understanding and performance of gender are all shaped by the fact that you're autistic and your autistic experience. So it could be referring to how we don't quite see social sort of constructs as being real is not the right word because I know they're real, but we don't feel as beholden to them in general. We don't care about the social stuff, and the fact that so much of gender is picking up social cues from the time you're a child, telling you this is how society thinks a girl should be. This is how society thinks, and we're not picking those up the same way. And it's also informed by sensory differences and our routine and all these other autistic characteristics. So, yeah, I'd say a couple months after my autism diagnosis, I started seeing a lot of content about autistic experience of gender. And I saw the term autigender and I looked it up, and there is nothing that described quite how I often felt I wasn't being a girl correctly. I knew I was a girl. I had asked myself those questions, which autistic people are far more likely to do, because it's like, do I want to participate in gender? If I do, what role do I want to play? Is the one that was assigned to me correct?
Participate in gender. I love that. That's so good.
Let's do some. And then I was like, there were years ago, I was like, let me do some thought experiments. Oh, yeah, I'm a cis woman, but why am I expressing myself in such a different way? And why are other cis women telling me I'm not doing things right? Why do I feel othered among other cis women? And then I was like, it's even among other queer cis women that I somehow feel othered. And I didn't quite understand. And autigender as a label really helped me understand that, because the way I understand it is different than an allistic woman would. An allistic, for anyone who doesn't know, just means a not autistic person.
Absolutely. Wow. I love, I've heard someone else say that, actually, Angela, who I interviewed recently, who was saying about, being a woman wrong, in that sense of like, I'm not doing this right,
Yeah. And I think also looking at like who were women that I admired growing up. And thinking of the women that I admired, it was like Helen Keller, Amelia Earhart, Xena Warrior Princess, um,
Yeah.
Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica. Like, there were so many women, but they were not necessarily icons of a neurotypical idea of femininity. But to me,
Mm.
I was like, no, they are women, and they're amazing women, and those are women I admire. And in contrast, it's like, I am doing womanhood a little differently. Like, I had a very brief, like, sort of special interest in, like, Joan of Arc,
Mm.
and just all of these women who I think, to me, encapsulate the kind of femininity I experience, but I think to an holistic person might not make the most sense.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I suspect more people are autistic or on the spectrum at least than we realize, because I feel like, because
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
I'm 50 now. When I was a kid, I think when you talked about, or the knowledge about autistic people is very limited when I
Mhm.
was a child anyway, but also I think autism showed up then, or was perceived as like severely autistic, like people who were like having trouble communicating, were very,
Yeah,
all that
and
stuff.
and
Yeah.
and autism, like, 50 years ago, autism was, blamed on mothers.
Wow. Yeah.
They had the whole idea of the refrigerator mother, meaning your mother was too cold, and that's why the child was the way they were.
Wow.
It was also labeled as a type of schizophrenia
Hmm.
back then. But yeah, the autism spectrum, it doesn't go from less autistic to more autistic.
Hmm.
We all have a spectrum of, it's more like a circular chart, and we have our autistic traits, and we can experience them more intensely or less intensely.
Hmm.
So I mask a lot, like very high masking. So
Hmm.
my social difficulties might not be as high as someone else's. One of my partners is also autistic, and his communication is probably lower than mine because I was hyperlexic as a child, and my communication is a lot higher. My
Mm.
pattern recognition is higher. So I think that goes hand in hand with how we understand and experience and process gender, because
Mhm.
autistic people are most likely to be LGBTQIA. 70% in a poll in 2018, 70% of autistic respondents identified somewhere under the umbrella.
As in 70.
70,
Yeah.
yes.
Wow.
And there have been a few studies, but it's between 6 and 8 times as likely to be trans. Some of the studies said trans or gender variant,
Mhm.
and that is such an open term that I would fit under that umbrella. But more likely, like truly transgender autistic people is like 6 times as likely as holistic people.
Wow.
And there was a study in, I also believe, 2018 that showed it's actually more indicative, very likely, of how many trans people there are in humanity
Mm.
versus just autistic people. We are just more likely to question our gender and to say, "No, I don't think this one's for me. Thank you. I think you assigned me wrong. No thanks. I won't have that
Yeah.
one."
Mm.
So yeah, it's just been really eye-opening, and like getting my diagnosis, I've been able to embrace more, like, I don't need to keep doing these things that I was doing to be a woman, quote unquote, correctly.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't need to keep doing these things that are causing me sensory issues because I'm a woman. I want to be perceived as such. But especially living where I live, I'm in Texas, you are
Mm.
subject to a lot of ridicule for that and harassment.
Mhm.
And it is, even though I am subject to that more, it is a lot more freeing and a lot more comfortable me mentally and physically, just doing my thing.
Mhm.
And for me with gender, the binary aspects of gender too, for people who see it as a binary, I don't even see it as like female, a bunch of stuff in between, male. To me, it's like there are so many types of woman. There are so many types of non-binary person or agender person or gender fluid person. It
Mm.
is an infinite spectrum. There's so many types of ways to be a man. There's so many ways to be a masculine woman or a femme non-binary person. Like I'm a Trekkie, so I'm just like there is infinite diversity and infinite
Yes.
combinations, and
Yes.
it's beautiful. Yeah, yeah, this infinite
Yeah.
diversity, and
Yeah.
and
I
I
love
think
it.
I think the most basic way I describe it, and it's usually to cishet people who have not really evaluated gender very much, is like autistic people love analogies.
Mm.
But for me, it's like, okay, if people are Doritos and the other women are nacho cheese Doritos, I'm still a Dorito. I'm a Cool Ranch Dorito. We're both
Yeah.
Doritos. I'm just a different flavor of Dorito.
Yeah. And then like infinite flavors of
There
Dorito,
are
right?
infinite flavors.
Yeah.
There's so
Yeah.
many.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Oh yeah, Trekkie all the way. Yeah. I had a conversation with another Trekkie a while ago and their name was Dax.
I love
So
that.
yeah. Yeah.
In my podcast, we have a non-binary character that I named Dax in their
Aha.
honor.
Yeah, it's a very popular one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we're going to talk about Trek for the rest of the episode. No, must not go there. That'll take hours. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you mentioned your podcast.
Mhm,
You say you do that with your partners. So
mhm.
polyamory. Let's talk a bit about polyamory. What is that like for you? Do you feel like obviously I feel like all these things are just facets of our identity, and for you, what you said was like gender and autism are very much linked.
Mhm.
Um, what about relationship styles? Because some people say it's not really who I am; it's more what I do. Other people might feel that is more a part of, like, an integral part of themselves. So, how do you experience that?
Yeah, learning about polyamory, I did find that a lot of people who are polyamorous are also autistic.
Hmm.
And I think that connection comes from saying, like, society says this is how I'm supposed to do my relationships, but really I can create whatever kind of life I want and foster
Hmm.
whatever types of relationships I want. For me, it was actually accidental. So I had written my podcast. It's an audio drama for everyone. I had written it initially to be a comic book, and there was a character who I was like, in my mind, she's going to look like Violet, who is my girlfriend, but
Hmm.
was my best friend at the time. And I
Hmm.
was like, yes, the beautiful, beautiful love interest will look like my best friend. Nothing weird.
Hmm.
Nothing weird. We turned it into an audio drama, and she is a very good voice actor. And I was like, well, of course she has to voice that character, and I'm voicing the one that's her love interest. So, whatever. If I'm going to pretend to be in love with someone, I can pretend to be in love with her.
Hmm.
And one of the comorbidities of being autistic is alexithymia, which
What
I
is
have.
that?
It is sort of where the stereotype of autistic people don't feel emotion sort of comes from. But it's not that we don't feel it, it's that we have trouble naming it or adding much nuance to it. It takes us a while to process them. So for me, it's hard to distinguish sometimes anything beyond like mad, sad, or happy. And sometimes the mad and sad, I'm like, I don't know which one I am more.
Hmm.
So it takes me a while to process. I will experience the physical sensations that come along with an emotion, but it's like my brain hasn't gotten the memo. Like you're feeling this because you're worried or you're disappointed, or so it takes me a while. And the more complex the feeling
Hmm.
is, sometimes it takes me years to process. Like, oh, that thing really upset me.
Hmm.
So when you are already married and you're realizing that you are in romantic love with your best friend, that took me a while to process. So
I hear you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we had been doing the show for 6 months or so, and I had talked to a different friend who also does the show with me, but is a platonic friend, but one of my very
Hmm.
best friends. And I was like, okay, goodbye, I love you. And I hung up. And then one of the little like background tracks in my brain said, hey, when you say I love you to him, you don't mean it the same way you do when you say it to your husband or to Violet. And I went,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, no. Oh, that's romantic love." And I'm demi-romantic, so I those are literally the only my partners are the only 2 people I have ever felt actual romantic love for.
Say a bit more about what demi-romantic means to you, if you would.
Yeah, that means that I can't develop romantic feelings for someone without having a, like, solid relationship and knowledge about them, and, like, basically,
Mm.
I have to have, like, a very close relationship with someone platonically before any romantic feelings can happen. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I've always been the friend when someone goes on 2 dates and it's like, "Oh, this person's so great, like, they're so wonderful. I think I might love them." And I'm I thought I was just a jerk, but I'm like, "How can you know that? You can't
Mm.
you can't feel. How can you feel that already? It's dating. Everyone's lying for a while anyway." Like, that's another thing as an autistic person I don't
Yeah.
understand is dating.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I realized the nature of my affection for her was romantic and more like monogamy, like monogamous culture was so embedded in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And coming from a religious fundamentalist home too, yeah, yeah. That religious trauma also has you programmed to think, well, if I thought about the thing, that is nearly as bad as actually going out and doing the thing.
Mm.
So I felt like I had done something truly wrong just for recognizing my own feelings. So
Mm.
I was being I was not doing well for like a week, and finally my husband was like, "Hey, you need to tell me what's going on. I'm really concerned for you." And he was like, he's like, "At this point I kind of like I have to know. You need to tell me."
Mm-hmm.
Just sort of like I've let you have space and it's not getting better.
Mm.
So then I was like, I love Violet in a gay way." To
Oh, wow.
to
Mm.
which he responded, "Yeah, no shit. Like you didn't know that?" And I was like, "What?" He's like, "You really didn't know that?" I was like, "No, I didn't." He was like, "Oh, sweetie."
Oh.
Um, and then he said, "Well, it'll take some adjusting, but how about we discuss you pursuing that with her because I get the sense she feels the same." And he's like, "And you are not someone who feels this way a lot or
Mm.
at all. And if you feel this intensely," he's like, "I think it would kill you not to tell her about it and not to live honestly telling her how you feel about her." And
Mm.
I was like, "Hold on, that's an option?" I had never considered it. And he did research. He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "What you're talking about, like my story of I was happily partnered, then I realized the nature of my affection for someone else was romantic, and I felt guilty, is what a lot of people who realize they have the capacity for polyamory feel like at some
Mm-hmm.
point."
Yeah.
Because I was perfectly happy, like, I'm perfectly happy in that relationship. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that I was looking for anything, it wasn't that I had some unmet needs. I just
Mm.
happen to have the capacity to romantically love more than one person, and I think that part of polyamory might be part of who someone is
Mm.
versus something they practice or espouse, because I
Mm.
found a lot of monogamous people might not understand why I can have that romantic sort of connection with 2 people.
Mhm.
And even some people who practice, like, ethical non-monogamy, which doesn't necessarily have the love or deep relationship part of polyamory. It can, but it doesn't necessarily have it. I had some people in my life who practice that who are like, "You're not gonna set up, like, some sort of hierarchy. You're not going to." I don't get it. They're like, "It's fine if it's just having sex with someone else, but loving them?" And
Wow. Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay, 1, I'm autistic. I don't like hierarchies. 2, they're people. I'm not picking a favorite movie. Like, I why would I choose? I love them both." And the
Yeah.
way I put it is like when someone has a child and then they decide to have a second child, it's not because they're tired of that first child and they don't love them anymore and they wanna have a second one.
Yeah.
It's because you have the capacity for so much love that you're like, "Yeah,
Exactly.
I would love to give some of that love I have to another child." So for me, being autistic too, I can't process why people can't see that in relation to other types of love.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally feel that as well. I feel like rather than a hierarchy, I feel like each relationship with each person is different, is unique
Mhm,
in its own
mhm.
way. And I feel like the reason I am drawn to polyamory, or at least non monogamy, is because I want the freedom to explore every dynamic with another person without limitations.
Yeah,
Whatever that looks like, I just want it to be what it is, what it can be, just free to be free to,
yeah,
to experience that. And that's why I feel drawn to it. But I hear you about there's so much unlearning to do, because even though I know that about myself and I've tried monogamous relationships and it's never really worked, not necessarily just because of monogamy, but
mhm. Yeah,
mismatches or whatever, grown apart, all that stuff. But I'm noticing in myself how much baggage I have from
mhm.
social conditioning and having to unlearn and decondition and rediscover myself. And also, I feel like that's unearthed a lot of like boundary issues I've had, not
Yep,
knowing what my needs are, being a recovering people pleaser, all that stuff. I feel like exploring this has really opened my eyes to learning this and having queer relationships actually as well. But I feel like, yeah, being autistic, I wonder at this time, like if I'd been born in this day and age, I wonder if I would have been diagnosed because I strongly suspect neurodivergence on my own part. And I feel like maybe that is a way of saying to every facet of even societal things, like, hang on a minute, this is very binary. This is very, just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean I want to do it this way. So
and
maybe
it's
gender, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
sexuality, relationships, all those things, be like, no, I'm going to do it differently
yeah,
because
like
this doesn't work for me.
the preset ways don't work for me.
Yeah.
Why and it's like, being autistic is also going like, people are doing these things, they never question why they're doing them or why they feel they
Yeah,
need to do them. And
exactly.
I think a big thing of the autistic experience is questioning everything.
Mm.
And yeah, so polyamory was something that I never expected. It's been about a year and a half.
Hmm.
We all live together now.
Wow,
They
amazing.
I
Yeah.
already like I had already known Violet for like 7 years before then.
Hmm.
So James had already known her, that's my husband, and they joke that they're each other's second best friends
That's so
because I'm the
lovely.
first. Yeah, we
Yeah.
have and it's really like my relationship with both of them I think only gets stronger for the fact that we have very clear verbal boundaries we set, which works for me as an autistic person because I'm not going to
Hmm.
pick up when someone's giving me some subtext or social cue about a boundary. I need verbally to be told.
Hmm.
We have
Clarity. Mm.
yeah, we have regular check-ins every week just to say how's everyone doing? Does something need to be readjusted? Is anyone having feelings about anything that need to be addressed? And things get taken care of before they compound into a big problem.
Yeah, that's so healthy though. And I feel like it's stuff that we should be doing in any relationship,
Yeah,
like monogamous, romantic,
absolutely.
sexual, platonic, anything, because
Yeah.
a lot of stuff goes unsaid. We don't get taught proper communication skills. We have to figure that out as we go, right?
No, yeah, and my therapist has even said, like, I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with how autistic people communicate, but these same people come to me and pay a lot of money to learn how to communicate the way you do with their partners because that's the only way they're going to have a healthy relationship is communicating directly. And he's like, so when I told him like, oh, we're trying polyamory, he didn't seem stressed. He was like, if anyone can do it, it's y'all. He's like,
Mm,
you can. He's like,
amazing.
you communicate directly. And I think one reason a lot of autistic people are also drawn to it is because there's very clear verbal boundaries. They're very
Mhm.
clear. I have a weekly meeting, a routine where I know what things are going to look like. We have our shared schedule. We check in with everyone. Everything has to be out in the open.
Mhm.
And that for me, for a relationship style, works really well. So
Hmm.
for me, I'm not, all of our relationships are kind of close. Both my partners are monogamous. I'm not dating anyone because I'm demi-romantic. I don't have the interest. Like, I don't understand dating in general.
Yeah.
Both of my partners are people who were very best friends of mine, and I just realized the nature of my affection had changed. And I don't get dating and I have no desire to. So ours is kind of an uncommon form of polyamory because polyamorous and monogamous people aren't usually together, but I'm happy with my little family.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love it, and it's not the way I thought my life would look even 2 years ago. Like,
Mm.
just thinking of everything 2 years ago that had changed. I didn't know I was autistic. I didn't know I had ADHD.
Mm.
I didn't know a lot of that, and yeah, I think learning that I'm autistic and saying, "Oh, all these things you're questioning, it's because of how you're programmed. You need to dive into that more."
Mm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
really shaped my experience of a lot of stuff.
Amazing. Yeah. I was thinking, I mean, I don't know if it would be of benefit for me to get diagnosed because I don't know how it would, I don't know. I don't know if it would do anything, is what I mean.
Yeah.
It might
So
do, but.
so in the autistic community, self-diagnosis, especially for people who are late diagnosed, is
Mm.
totally valid
Mm.
because there are so many hurdles to diagnosis. Lots of the tests they use are made for children and very much geared toward cis white boys.
Yeah, because it's very underdiagnosed in women, I've heard, or it used to be, or it probably
It
still
is it
is.
is it is
Yeah.
still. It's getting
Mm.
better.
Yeah.
It's getting a lot better, but there is a very narrow view of what autistic traits they expect you to show in order to get a diagnosis. And there's very little understanding of how those traits are expressed in people who are not cis male.
That is so interesting. It sounds a lot like if you want to proceed with, at least here in the UK, if you want to get medical support with transitioning, whatever that looks like for a person, then you almost have to perform your gender in a certain way to
Mhm.
be able to access the help that you need. You know,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think for a lot of people who might be questioning, like for you also, learning about it yourself, taking some of the tests online, and just knowing for yourself, that's enough for a lot of people. And other autistic
Mhm.
people will absolutely, like, the majority of them will be like, yeah, absolutely valid because there are long wait lists. I know I have some friends in the UK who are autistic who waited 2 years to get their assessment.
Hmm. Sounds a lot like, gender identity clinic,
Yeah,
waiting
yeah.
times that probably, yeah, not as bad
Um,
really, but they're even longer now. But yeah.
And yeah, and for me,
Mm.
I had to find a doctor who did telehealth because all of the ones here wanted to offer a really harmful therapy afterward to basically teaches autistic, it's called ABA, teaches autistic people to pretend to be neurotypical at a detriment to
Wow.
our own health. But
Hmm.
I mean, I did it for myself because I knew, given my history and my own sort of trauma, that I wouldn't believe it unless I had a doctor say that.
Mm. That makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, even here in Texas, you have to get your diagnosis every 5 years as though it'll change if you want to use your autism diagnosis to seek accommodations somewhere.
Well, that's interesting. It's like it's not like that's going to change, is
Yeah,
it? It's,
it's
it's
not going
part
to
of you.
change.
Like,
It's
see
not
if
going
you're
to change.
still autistic. What the hell?
Yeah,
My God.
it's another ableist hurdle
Yeah.
to try to keep from providing things for disabled people.
Mm. Yep. Texas ain't looking so good, is it? When
No,
it comes to gender or this, by the
yeah,
sound of
no,
it, which I had no idea about. Yeah.
yeah, we're trying to get out of here. Very much. We're trying to get out of here.
Oh my God. Gosh. Yeah. So, yeah, you talked about being a woman but doing it wrong.
Mhm.
So, I'm just thinking, like, would you describe yourself then as an autigender woman?
Yes, I would.
Yeah. Yeah. So what does being, and not just being a woman, I think, but like, what does femininity mean to you?
Femininity to me, I think, can't be put together as a bunch of physical traits that society has deemed make someone feminine. For me, I think, to use another analogy, if I were, you know, it's the first day of school and I'm going into the cafeteria and they've organized the tables by genders, I'm going to be most comfortable at the table with women. If there's a table that has queer women, I'm going to be even more comfortable at that table.
Mm.
If there's a table with autistic women, I am far more likely to be comfortable at that table because even if they're not queer, they're more likely to be accepting of how I express myself.
Interesting. Yeah.
So for me, femininity is more, it is more my way of telling the world, this is my internal experience and how I see the world and it is a shared sort of viewpoint for things. So for me, femininity is like, there's nurturing, but it's not held just into the realm of motherhood like a lot of cishet society is. It's
Mm.
nurturing your friends in their pursuits, nurturing your relationships, nurturing each other. Like for the other women in my life, they care for me in a way that other gendered friends still care for me, but there is truly like I hesitate to say like the divine feminine because that gets so binary, but
Yeah.
there's truly like a nurturing, a protection, like a softness of emotion and personality that is very much to me like do no harm but take no shit.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. That should be on a t-shirt for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Like I didn't coin it, but to me that is to
I've heard
me
it as well.
yeah,
Yeah, it's good.
if
Yeah.
I had to encapsulate my femininity, it's do no harm but take no shit.
Mm. I like that. Yeah.
But yeah, in performing incorrectly too,
Hmm.
incorrectly using air quotes,
Yeah.
um, for autistic people, a lot of the time when we mask, we have a lot of internal rules to tell us like, well, I can't do this, I have to do this. And for me, a lot of those rules, I have specific events I can remember where someone pointed out that I did something wrong and I made another new mental rule to try to quote unquote correct it. And because I didn't know
Yeah.
I was autistic, I didn't understand. I thought everyone was doing that. So there are moments where so I'm remembering I was going to a new school and
Hmm.
in very autistic fashion, I remember was January 6th, 2002. Um, and some of the girls were like, oh, that's funny. You don't wear makeup. And were pointing out how they thought it was strange I didn't wear makeup. And I was like,
Hmm.
I mean, I am in middle school, but also, okay. So I made the mental note if I'm going to fit in here, I have to start wearing makeup every day because
Mm.
I want this relationship with the other girls. And that's part of the femininity to me too is I need that socialization, that camaraderie with other
Mhm.
women. And for me, the price was telling myself I have to perform my femininity in a way where they will let me in.
Mhm.
So that from that day through college, I wore makeup every day and it was all because if I want the other women to foster a relationship with me, they have to not think I'm weird.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
ultimately, makeup gives me sensory issues. I was putting myself through a sensory nightmare every single day. I don't
Oh,
like
wow.
wearing it. And
Mm.
that's part of being autigender too. I think makeup's fun. Sometimes I like playing around with it, but like I feel like my face is suffocating after a little bit.
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah, sensory issues is such a good point. And I love the example of makeup and how that, I guess, links together with like expression and,
Yeah,
the,
so
yeah.
it definitely shapes my expression. And there was a similar time at school where we had uniforms and there were these pants that the girls were allowed to wear that I hated because they were like super high waist, front pleated, very, very 90s. They hadn't updated the pants in a while. And then one school year, they're like, they updated the pants and they actually look like normal, like chinos, like fairly modern. I was like, yes, I'm going to get the pants. I get to wear pants. And I wore them. And the other girls commented, oh, you're actually wearing those?
Mhm.
Like, "Oh my god, you're wearing the pants? What are you?" And it's Texas, so I had a few people call me a couple slurs
Mm.
for it, but I was like, "I guess I can't ever wear these pants that I just bought for my uniform. I'm just gonna have to wear the skirts again." And skirts give me sensory issues.
Mm.
I have sensory issues in my own body a lot of the time where if I feel my legs touch or I feel my arms touch my side, I can get overstimulated if I have other
Mm.
things overstimulating me happening. So that's another reason my sensory issues truly shape how I perform and express things.
Mm.
And that is another aspect of autigender for me that when I learned about the label and I learned about my diagnosis, it was like, "Oh, I don't have to do these things. I need to be kinder to myself and my own expression, and
Mm.
my gender expression shouldn't put me in actual literal discomfort, like physical discomfort."
Yeah. Yeah. That makes that I feel like sometimes, when you have a conversation sometimes and things kind of click into place for you,
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm having a lot of those moments in this conversation. So that's interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking about what you said about masking as well, and like learning these, from experiences, internalizing that and making new rules inside
Mhm.
yourself, like, oh, must do this, not this, that kind of stuff. It's
Yeah.
very recognizable. I find that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
for anyone doing that, neurotypicals do not do that.
Okay.
They don't.
Yeah.
And
Oh. Yeah.
and my hair even, like, nobody can see my hair. I have a red mohawk.
Mhm.
For years, I had, like, long bleach blonde hair because that was part of performing it, and I have a lot of
Mm.
hair. I get overheated, I get sensory issues. I kept
Mhm.
that hair as another gendered performance thing to say, "I'm doing it correctly. Please let me hang out with you other women." And I had real freedom in the pandemic after my diagnosis and everything. I was like, "Oh, fuck this," and I got the clippers, and
Wow.
I shaved it. I was like, "I don't need to do this anymore." And I'm never
Yeah.
going back. I'm never having long hair again. It was such a sensory issue.
Wow, that is so interesting, isn't it? And the word you said just now is freedom, and I thought it
Yeah.
sounds like you have found a lot of freedom within like your expression, within your gender, within life in general, I guess, in your
Mhm.
relationships, just doing things your way. Yeah.
Yeah, it has been so freeing. I think when you don't have the language to describe your experience
Mhm.
to other people, you feel trapped without being able to explain who you are.
Mhm.
Like, I cannot it's like telling people I cannot describe to you my own experience because I don't have the words for it, and then someone handed me the words for it, and I was like, "Oh, this is me.
Mm.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, now I can describe to people what my experiences are like. I understand why I'm like this now."
Yeah.
And that has been really freeing.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, like I know about like not having the words for things. Again, I'm like, oh, this is like, yep. Is there anything that you would like to add that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, I think if anyone is questioning a lot about their gender and a lot about the relationship style, I think another natural thing is to maybe question your neurotype in general because I think autistic people are, I think part of what the gift of being autistic is to question these social things that don't work for you.
Mhm.
And for autistic people, our average life expectancy is only 36. And that's largely due to self harm.
Wow.
And I think if people, even if you don't go get an official diagnosis, if you go do the research so you understand, oh, I'm not broken, I'm not bad at being a person, I'm a
Mhm.
perfectly sort of composed autistic person. I think it's important for people who are questioning those other things to look into that also,
Mhm.
because for me, I think the best description is like, I was using the user manual everyone else got for life, and it turns out I have a completely different user's manual.
Mhm. It's kind of one you have to create for yourself, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly the way my therapist put it. He was
Mhm.
like, "Because autism is such a spectrum of different experiences, I can't just do things the way another autistic person does. And
Mm.
that is something there was another recent set of brain scans done that they wanna look into more for a study,
Hmm.
where for allistic people, the brain scans of their brains, a lot of the structures looked very similar. There were some differences, but very similar. For
Hmm.
autistic people, our brains aren't even similar to each other. They're different from the allistic brain, but our brains show more individual,
Diversity.
more diversity. Yeah, more
Yeah.
diversity even from other autistic people
Interesting.
because the way we're all wired, the spectrum is so many different beautiful traits that are higher or lower or mixed for every person. So
Hmm.
I think if you are questioning a lot of things and you might think you're autistic, definitely look into that. Like write your user manual. Like you're
Yeah, and it's
yeah.
almost like getting rid of the one that you've been writing. Not that you've been doing it wrong, but like you've just been making it mean the wrong stuff for you, I guess.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think to have another analogy, because autistic people
Mm?
love it, it's like, "Oh, why is my user's manual for this Volkswagen not working?" "Oh, it's because I don't have a Volkswagen. I have a Vespa, so no wonder I didn't know how to do anything. I wasn't doing car wrong. I'm just not a car, I'm a Vespa." Um,
Yeah.
so
Ah,
it
I love it.
it helps so much because
Mm.
I think especially with the intersection of, like, trans and just queer folks in general, we have so much against us in society that mental health is really a struggle, and not by virtue of us being queer, but because of how society treats us, that if you can realize this autistic component also and help yourself, like, I was told I had treatment-resistant depression from early childhood. I was put on every med under the sun. They
Wow.
made me depersonalized because it wasn't my brain chemistry that needed help. It was being altered when it didn't need to be. I was in autistic burnout
Wow.
and being
Mm.
thrown exactly into the same situations that were wreaking havoc on me. So to know, like, oh, that wasn't depression. It was autistic burnout. Now I have the tools to take care of myself. I think that could save a lot of people's lives because our
Mhm.
second leading cause of death is from self-harm.
Mm.
And if you just learn you're not broken and learn those tools, I think it's really important. So for
Mhm.
anyone that's resonating with stuff I've said, um,
Yep.
yeah, like please look
Definitely
into it.
me. Ah, wow. Yeah. Mm. Um, what was I thinking about? Sometimes I have to talk it through just to
Oh,
get
you're
back
good.
to it.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
good. Yeah, my brain
Yeah.
goes down different rabbit trails too.
Yeah.
I also have ADHD, so I feel that. There are like 8 different trains of thoughts happening.
See, yeah, that's a thing. I feel like I resonate but some aspects of ADHD. I'm like, I wonder. I think OCD is more my thing, though. But I think I'm pretty sure
There's
that is my thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a different nature to the compulsions of autism and OCD
Mm,
that the nature of the compulsions are different. Like both cause
mm,
compulsive behavior, but they're also comorbid. So you could have both types of compulsions at the same time. So
interesting.
I really sympathize for people who have both and have to try to like delineate which one am I experiencing, which one needs help right now.
Mm, yeah. Gosh, we're fascinating creatures, humans, aren't we?
Right.
Really?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
so different. Like biodiversity is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I feel. I feel a bit like, oh, maybe we're complete. But then I think, oh, what if I think of something like in 5 minutes? You know?
We're good. We can keep chatting until you come up with a question. I'm
Yeah,
totally
that's
good with
totally
that.
cool. Nice. I like that. Yeah. What was I going to come back to? Yeah, I was thinking about the polyamory really, and how, yeah, I feel like I really struggle with there is like knowing this stuff as an option and thinking, yeah, you
Yeah,
can rationalize it. Like, of course, we have the capacity for love that's infinite. Some people say, love is infinite, but time is not. That kind of thing.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, which is true. Which is true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's I see some people who are polyamorous who are like, "I have 5 partners," and I'm like, "How does your Google Calendar work?
Right?
How
I'm
are
like,
you
wow.
doing this? Like
Yeah.
we already have our shared Google Calendar, and I'm like, there's stuff all the time, and it's easier because we live together, so I don't
Yeah.
have to do all that scheduling. But yeah,
Hmm.
no, it's just realizing that things are an option, and like autistic people, when we are really high masking, we tend to really stick to a lot of these social rules because of our black and white thinking, because it's like I
Mm.
got punished when I didn't follow this social rule, so I have to follow it to the letter. And when
Hmm.
someone sees is in a gray area or doesn't follow the nuance to it, I'm going to get very upset about it because I got punished for breaking that rule, and now they're breaking it and no one's upset with them. So I have to really look at some of my behavior sometime going, why did that elicit such a visceral reaction from you? Was it
Mm.
the trauma of being autistic? Was it the religious trauma? So yeah, I think not understanding that polyamory was an option is from just compulsory monogamy, like
Yeah,
culturally.
exactly. And it's like there's nothing wrong with it, but it might not work for you. It's not just, and even the term like ethical non-monogamy is saying that, oh, if you do it ethically, it might be okay. But it's also suggesting like that makes it out to be like that makes monogamy out to be
The
the
ethical
ethical option.
choice.
There's nothing
Exactly.
inherently ethical about monogamy. It's just
No.
one form of relationship structure,
Yes.
you
And
know?
it's like it's like I struggle to sort of rationalize how many people who claim they're monogamous and are like cheating on partners or lying
Right?
to partners
Yeah.
or being in these relationships where they're like, they make me miserable a lot of the time.
Hmm.
But
But hey,
uh,
it's what you do. It's how you're meant to do it, right?
yeah, and like
Yeah.
I recently saw an NPR article talking about like what to do when you're married and do you find you have a crush on someone else. And
Mm.
I was like, don't look at the comments, don't look I'm looking at the comments, aren't I?
Yeah.
And it was a bunch of people who are like, well, I was in love with this person. I didn't do anything because you're married and you're not supposed to do that and like get over it, grow up. That's what being married is. And then seeing a couple posts from polyamorous people saying, imagine thinking all humans are programmed to be monogamous. Um,
Mm.
and just a bunch of people doing angry faces saying, like, oh, here's the annoying polyamorous people. And I'm like, why is that annoying? All of you in these comments are expressing that you have had romantic feelings for more than one person at a time. Why
Mm.
is the person telling you that it's an option to nurture those romantic relationships at the same time? Why is that person the bad person? Oh,
Right?
because they're breaking a societal rule that you feel beholden to.
Yeah. And it's also when you hear people comment, especially like maybe fundamentalist monogamists,
Mhm.
they're like, "Oh, polyamory. Oh, it's just cheating." And I'm like, "Okay, if you don't know the meaning of consent, then I'm worried about you." You
Yeah.
know? Hello? Right?
Yes. And then, like, this sort of monogamous concept of, like, well, that's emotional cheating. And it's like, I'm sorry, am I not meant to have deep emotional relationships with more than one person if I'm in a romantic relationship? I don't understand that. There's, like, so much of it now that it's like, ah, a lot of this you very much didn't understand.
Mhm.
So, yeah, be like, having these 2 relationships to nurture now, I'm more and more seeing just how toxic a lot of there's toxic monogamy. There's
Yeah.
monogamy and then there's toxic monogamy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there are some studies showing that like polyamorous people are far less likely to spread STIs because
Interesting.
we're getting tested regularly. Everyone is fully giving all the information. We're likely to practice safe sex because we're being honest with our partners and not cheating and
Mhm.
caring about everyone involved and getting tested regularly and disclosing if and when we do have something, but far less likely to spread than monogamous people.
Mhm.
And it's like I feel like that should be evidence enough that the openness and the honesty is like we are looking out for those partners.
Mm.
We care
Mhm.
about those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think that openness and honesty, it's all about just living as, it's a bit overused this word, but like living as your authentic self. Like who
Mhm.
are you and who do you want to be? and how do you express that, like when it comes to relationships, style or sexuality, gender, all the things. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Neurodiversity.
I think people get so upset with that because for a lot of queer folks, especially, our authentic selves are in direct odds with the capitalist, imperialist,
Patriarchal.
patriarchal, colonizing
Hmm.
society. We are at odds
Hmm.
with that. So
Hmm.
it explains why people react that way. But also being autistic, I'm like, why are you so beholden to that?
Hmm. Yeah.
It literally doesn't affect you.
Yeah, exactly. What is other people's, how they practice anything or live their lives? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
What business is it of other people? I find it interesting, and especially like, yeah, I think if you're a woman, or basically if you have a vagina, everyone has an opinion about what you should and shouldn't do with it,
yep,
and everyone thinks it's their business what you do or don't do with it. So yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
yep. And like, especially living here, I don't know what the rules are in the UK, but
Hmm.
I can't post about being polyamorous on social media because my partners could get fired because their
Wow.
partner has a second partner. So even though they're not polyamorous, it's not a protected class of person. You can be fired for
Wow.
being polyamorous.
Hmm.
You can lose custody of kids. You can all this stuff.
Wow.
And it's so wild because it's like there's no evidence to say that what I'm doing is unhealthy to anyone,
Hmm. Hmm.
but
Totally.
it's very
Wow, that is
frustrating.
intense. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really intense. It's not, well, I mean, from my own maybe idealistic privilege perspective, I'm like, no, it's not like that here. But obviously, that's not my experience. But I don't know about people who might have experienced that. That might absolutely be a thing. You know. Yeah, I feel like we could just probably bumble on for ages, but like, gosh, I don't know if you heard of Polyphilia blog.
I do. I love polyphilia,
Me too.
and
Yeah.
she's autistic.
Yes. Yeah.
So a lot of her advice really resonates with me very well because she's
Hmm.
very practical and just has everything out in
Hmm.
the open. That was a really important resource when we were first doing things.
Yeah, yeah, I found that very helpful as well. And she or they, I think they use both pronouns, she and they.
I think she,
Yeah,
they.
yeah, yeah. So I saw a post about like it's okay to want to practice polyamory because that's how you believe, because you believe that is for you, and also to struggle with it because of all the, you know, constructs and
Mhm.
societal conditioning and stuff that you've experienced and need to basically clear out or at least, integrate in some way to make it all make sense more.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's a valid point for any part of someone's identity who might
Mm.
be contrary to what society accepts because I know I have days where I struggle with not looking like a lot of the other women here.
Hmm.
I have been harassed several times. I think the last one was I did an art show and I had a pop up and someone came to my booth and just started slinging a bunch of slurs at me, not talking to me at all.
Wow.
Um, so it's harder here, but like
Mm.
I think struggling with any part of your identity that is contrary to what society deems as quote unquote normal, um,
Mm.
yeah, that's valid. And like relationships are, I don't like the idea that relationships are work. Because work very often is something you don't want to do.
Mm. Good point.
I think they take effort. Like relationships take effort, and sometimes it might be difficult. But to me, I'd compare it more to a creative pursuit. Like
Mm.
my audio drama takes a lot of effort. It's not always easy, but it's so rewarding to see the thing that I have built with my
Hmm.
partners and my friends when we're done. It is
Yeah.
worth all of that effort. It is worth all of that time, even when it's
Hmm.
not easy. So,
Yeah, exactly. I really like that actually because I think that the work itself is to challenge your own beliefs and assumptions
mhm,
and discover like what is not mine and what is mine, or
mhm.
what do I want to be mine. I think that's where it's at really. Thank you so much for sharing, Brianne.
Yeah, thank you.
You can find out more details on the website at 50shadesofgender.com/Brianne, where you can also read the transcript. And you can find Brianne on Instagram at Brianne_Leeson and on Twitter at HotSauceGhost, and her podcast on Spotify and on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Lucky Winner Show. Thank you for listening to the 50 Shades of Gender podcast. You can find us online at 50shadesofgender.com, on social media, and on YouTube. Again, if you'd like to support us, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/50 Shades of Gender or buy us a coffee. Links are on the website. We hope you will listen again. Until then, stay curious and open-minded. Yay! I think I'll cut it there. I'll tidy things up
Perfect.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Nice one. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
being a
Thank you.
guest. Yeah. How was
Yeah.
that for you?
That was great.
Nice. Yeah. Cool.
Wonderful.
I'm just going to shut the window because I just
Yeah.
realised I've still got my window open. This is not
Yeah.
good for sound. Ow. Ah. So that's better.